Okay, right, so moving on to the best man, Jamie. Firstly, I'd like to say it was really difficult to choose a best man because I think as many of you here, we're all fortunate enough to have such a good group of friends. It was very, very difficult to choose. I eventually chose Jamie for a couple of reasons. One, because I thought he would go easiest on me. He probably just thought in his head, I don't think so. But then I'd like to remind him how scared he is of my mum, your mum, and my wife. So, yeah, okay. So, somehow the focus always does turn onto Jamie. For example, I remember when I first met Jamie, he was wearing a Sonic the Hedgehog t-shirt and trying to roller skate. Being a skinny man in a massive t-shirt, he looked a bit like a boat sail whizzing around the dance floor. Sorry, I'm going back into best man mode, so let me just turn it back round. I've known Jamie for years. He's been a great friend to me, stuck with me through thick and thin, getting into all sorts of hijinks. Thanks very much for organising such a great stag. We all had a good time and we made it back in one piece. Although I did spend most of it dressed up like a female Oompa Loompa, quad biking around with my skirt billowing up over my head. Thanks very much for your support today and keeping everything running smoothly. Jamie kept on asking me for material for his speech, which I thought was weird. Why would I offer up my own execution? So, in case it's in your speech, here are a few things that I've done. I was a bit of a podgy kid. I threw an avocado at your house. I did put the daffodils in your mum's oven. I had made some truly terrible dating decisions. I once spent the last pennies on a lad's holiday on a skateboard. And I have consistently done stupid things with my hair, including a mullet at age 30. So, Jamie, if you've got anything left, over to you.
It's only taken out a limited amount of time. So, good evening, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed the festivities so far. I think you'll agree it's been a fantastic day. I look forward to enjoying the evening with you all. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jamie. I've been mates with Luke for coming up for 25 years now. We both grew up in South Bucks with a bunch of guys in various areas across here. So today as best man, I have the privilege of sharing some of that experience with you all. But before I start on the ritual humiliation of the groom, I would first like to say thanks to Luke and Michelle and to their families for what has been an amazing day. The bride and bridesmaids are looking resplendent, complementing these wonderful surroundings beautifully. So when I sat down to write this speech, as Luke has just demonstrated, I quickly realised this one was going to be tricky. Anecdotes are typically the centrepiece of any good best man speech. But it didn't take long for me to realise that about all of the anecdotes end up with me coming off worse. So, he's certainly no angel, but there's a subtlety to his brand of troublemaking and humorous failures, a subtlety which I've sadly lacked these last 20 odd years, which means that all the best anecdotes are immediately eliminated from the running on the grounds of self-preservation. So what do I do? How do I inspire humour and embarrassment? Well, I've decided to opt for a good old-fashioned character assassination. So, I've entitled this Luke Romrell, a man of character. A character that I shall now take apart piece by piece. And I shall do this with the help of my very capable young friend here, Joe. But first, I'd like to be very clear on one very important point. I know Luke has had it in mind to thwart me in this speech, so I'm fully expecting him to cry foul at various points. But I can promise you, everything in here is the God's honest truth. As you will see, I'm backing up with photographic evidence, and in Luke's hand the cameras might be able to tell a few porkies. In mine, trust me, it doesn't lie. So, moving swiftly. His interests. Luke's interests are many and varied. They include DJing, films and television, and of course, good bourbon whiskey. But there are just a few that I would class as genuine obsessions. It is these things that warrant some inspection. Diet Coke. I have never known one person to drink quite so much Diet Coke. I have many memories of having to dig my way into his car through the pile of empty cans in the passenger footwell. This can't be healthy. And I asked myself, why is this such an obsession? It isn't even that nice. And I've spent many years pondering this, and each time I can only come to one conclusion. For those of you that haven't noticed, appearances mean a lot to Luke. So the only plausible explanation can be, he is envisaging himself looking like this every time he cracks open a can. In fact, I think he may actually have convinced himself that this is the case. Unfortunately, what the rest of the world actually sees is this. Star Wars. I don't know anyone else with quite the same obsession with Star Wars. He owns lightsabers. He's built the Millennium Falcon out of Lego. And as you can see, he's not averse to the odd bit of fancy dress. I would not be at all surprised if one day he came out and told me he'd acquired a pet Wookiee which he now keeps in the garage. But we must be fair. He does make a pretty good Obi-Wan Kenobi. It turns out that actually they're making some new Star Wars films right now. And they recently ran open auditions where members of the public were asked to go along and apply for a part. There are certain physical requirements, of course. Let's face it, Luke's ability to grow a full beard isn't going to get him the part of such an iconic character. He would need acting skills and sufficient coordination as to allow him to wield a lightsaber without chopping his own arm off. So I asked myself, if Luke were to audition, what role would he be most suited to? What about Yoda? See, now I think this is far too charitable. I mean, yeah, Luke's getting a bit on a bit now, and whilst he is of comparable stature, Yoda is a Jedi Master, the greatest of them all. He performs more magic tricks with a lightsaber in just one of the movies than Paul Daniels did in an entire career. That man, quite frankly, is a legend. No, I have a far more plausible alternative. One of those feisty little Ewoks. No acting required, and there is only so much damage he can do to himself with a little wooden spear. So, moving to the next thing. All things golf. And no, I'm not talking to the venerable Scottish game. I'm of course referring to his string of Volkswagens. I think he's owned something like 5 different Golfs over the years, and this particular example is by far the pick of the bunch. Luke has had a passion for golfs for pretty much as long as I've known him. He puts in huge amounts of efforts with these cars, pulling them apart, fixing things, and rewinding the mile counter in case some lunatic actually decided to buy it. And he got good use out of them. I seem to recall that one finally died with something like 240,000 miles on the clock. That's the distance from the Earth to the Moon. And a fact that Luke cheerily pointed out to me once, along with the fact that after so much rewinding, the real mileage was probably like going to the moon and back. He did once try to sell one of these beloved vehicles on eBay. He set a heady reserve price, I think it was about 600 quid. And he ended up with a bid for, I think, 605. At this point, Luke decided he can't let his baby go for such a paltry sum. And he asks our mate Chris to make a bid to try and push it up a bit. Chris comes in at 650 and sure enough, wins the auction. Now, eBay rules require them to actually go through with this transaction and pay the eBay fees. So Luke ends up with both a car and a hefty bill from the auction site. And retain it he did. His love for that car meant he could not part with it, and he stores it to this day at his dad's house with a genuine intention of restoring it to its original splendour. All I can say is, good luck. Michelle, I really do hope that that is not the kind of respect he shows to the other loved ones. His looks. Right, so, Luke has always had an ability to restyle himself at the drop of a hat, and he does so frequently. As I've mentioned already, appearances are very important to him, so he pays great care and attention to the way that he presents himself. The following looks are very much indicative of that. They are unique and detailed in a way that begs for a proper name, so a bit like Blue Steel in Zoolander. So I thought, as a gift to Luke on his wedding day, why not try naming his more famous looks? is no stranger to a little peroxide. Various shades of blonde have appeared at various times, and I seem to remember a rather fetching shade of orange after one failed home dye effort. So the question is, what's the brand that we're going to give him here? I think Milky Bar Kid, but that seems a bit weak. And I think Peroxide Pearl, I mean that's better, but it's not quite hitting the mark. So, no, when I look at this, there's only one image that keeps flashing through my mind. So, moving on. This is a look that speaks to Luke's abundance of self-confidence. Confidence which we can clearly see is sorely misplaced. You can see it in his body language. Yeah, he's quite at ease, despite the fact that he's sporting a ridiculous haircut, what appears to be a bike chain around his neck, and a sleeveless t-shirt with that age-old rocker slogan, "Sex, drugs and rock and roll," written in pink. So you can see in this picture he has a kind of self-assured swagger about him, like he's pulling off a very convincing Dave Grohl or maybe a Keith Richards or Johnny Rotten. So this is a man who's about as rock and roll as Terry Wogan. To call this look rockstar Romreal or similar would be an affront to music legends past and present. So no, there can only be one label for this one. And now we come to my favourite, and this is actually one that he picked up on, funny enough. It's a real shame that this isn't better quality, but I think you can see the problem here, Joe. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is a mullet. So what can we say about this one? I mean, there's so many famous mullets that come flooding back. You know, Andre Agassi, that bloke from Neighbours, the Chuckle Brothers. But I keep getting visions of one person who pulled this look off on children's TV for years. This is probably why he's now confined to the radio. But this look is called Looking Sharp. Sorry, I had to go for a dodgy pun. So now this one has a story behind it. And it's a shame it's so cheaply printed that I'm afraid the quality is not going to be quite what I would like. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the eagle-eyed of you will have spotted the happy Christmas message at the bottom. And this is the year that Luke was skint coming up to Christmas and was looking for some more creative ideas for presents. Each member of his immediate family received one of these cheaply printed photos of himself. All I can say is thank God we never did Christmas presents. But what can we say about this print? You can see the slightly apologetic look on his face. He knows it's not going to go down well with his nearest and dearest, but yet you still get this sense he's thinking, I look really good here. As I've said already, I know Luke really well. And I can read it in the look on his face, that in this photo, he's thinking he looks like this. But all I can think of is Right Said Fred. His lack of stature. So, now Luke really hates it when I'm ribbing for this, but what better opportunity to do it to excess? So, it's undeniable that Luke is not the tallest of men. This is something he's had to live with day to day for his entire life. And it's testament to the strength of character that he finds various coping mechanisms to compensate. You won't like me showing you this one, but this is the reason why he gave up drinking pints of beer and now can only ever be seen with a dainty little Jamie in Whilst drinking alcohol is perhaps not the best coping mechanism, a good caffeinated drink can really help get you through the day. Here he is, arriving at work, having been sure to get his first cup of coffee before entering the office. Apparently he gets as much free hot chocolate as he likes at the factory, but can't get a good Americano for toffee. He is, however, not immune to the odd bout of short man syndrome. This is a very recent Facebook post, where he actually likens himself to Chuck Norris. His typo was as apt as it was hilarious. But seriously. So far we've seen he fancies himself as that bloke from the Diet Coke ads, David Beckham, and now Chuck flipping Norris. Joe, just remind us what Chuck Norris looks like. Chuck Norris, everyone. A man so famously rock hard that it is rumoured he was once bitten by a cobra, and after several days of excruciating pain, the cobra died. Luke, wrong rule, ladies and gentlemen. A man who thinks wrapping his dad's tie around his head and a beach towel around his waist makes him look like Bruce Lee. Little known facts. So, I thought I'd share a few random facts about our groom that I'm often entertained by. Now remember, as we established earlier, this is all gospel truth. Despite his cool DJ persona, Luke has always been a secret fan of 80s and 90s music, pop music. And as you can see here, he was in fact briefly a member of a boy band. As I recall, it was a Bros tribute act.
Factory Boy.
Factory Boy.
Oh, he has a tattoo of the word dude on his right shoulder blade as a consequence of a drunken night out with a friend about the same time as that film Dude, Where's My Car came out. To this day, his mate still has the corresponding sweet moniker on her ankle. As I think we've already established, personal appearances are very important to Luke, which means that male grooming is a key element of his life. Here he can be seen having his legs waxed. Incidentally, Luke is the only man I know who travels with a hairdryer. I've never understood this. It's not like he's Brian May, because my one-year-old's got more hair than him. There was actually a moment of panic on the stag do when he realised he'd forgotten it. But luckily, as I mentioned, I know Luke very well. So I had specifically booked a hotel with hairdryers to avoid such drama. And in keeping with the male grooming theme, it's true that Luke has on occasion been known to wear makeup. In this occasion, you can see he's sporting a rather fetching lip gloss and eyeshadow combo. And finally, Luke put a bunch of daffodils in the oven at my parents' house at a party that we had there. That is a fact. He's denied it for many years, and for the first time in 20 years plus, he actually admitted it tonight. I will be telling my mum later. Settling down. So, I've grown used to having Luke as my wingman through thick and thin. Then one day, 7 years ago, someone else came along to take my place. Enter Joseph, the then 3-year-old boy who comes on the scene and supplants me as the most important non-family member in Luke's life. Joe played this one well. He endeared himself with Luke to such an extent that my own prominence fell away rapidly. Now, I'm not the kind of person to get jealous or take any kind of offence to this scandalous move to snatch away my best mate. I take my hat off to him. This young man has made Luke happier than I've seen him in almost 25 years of friendship. But I do have to be sure that I'm handing over custody of my mate here to a suitable, responsible individual who is going to be able to look after him when times get tough. It was therefore pleasing to see that Joe got the measure of him very quickly. Now I know Luke is in good hands, and I can stand here proudly with this young man here helping me out as the best man. And these two really are inseparable. If this doesn't say it, I don't know what does. Luke really has taken to fatherhood like a duck to water. It's been a delight to see this relationship blossom into an exceptionally tight bond between the two of them, and We've been packed off for weekends away with cool boxes full of enough food to see us for a week. In fact, when I got in touch with her about popping over to discuss this speech, the first question I got was, will you want feeding? So, I for one am eternally grateful. And it is with this in mind, I'm going to grant her explicit request that I share this classic photo from Luke's youth. Don't look between the wellies, everyone. It was all soon. So, me and Luke have been best mates for what seems like forever, and a better friend you could not hope to ask for. There are also a number of other people here today who have formed part of a core group that has endured for almost 25 years now. It's, as to be expected, we're getting a bit older. These days, the occasions that we all get together are few and far between. In large part, there's been one person who has held us all together, and that is this man, Andy Barr. As Luke mentioned, he passed away very recently, and this has been really tough for us. Andy was an incredibly funny man, and I know that he would like nothing more than to have the last laugh at Luke's wedding. So I thought I would afford him that privilege by sharing one of his famous anecdotes. I was in the pub yesterday when I suddenly realised I desperately needed to fart. The music was really, really loud, so I timed my farts with the beat. After a couple of songs, I started to feel better. I finished my pint, and I noticed that everyone was staring at me. It was then that I remembered I was listening to my iPod. So, to the bride and groom. All joking aside, I couldn't be happier to see the relationship between Luke and Michelle strengthen over the last 7 years. Michelle is amazing, and as fine a life partner as I could want for my best mate. It is an honour to be able to pay tribute to them today, with a little fun sent in Luke's direction and a heartfelt toast to them both on their wedding day, to wish them many years of happiness together. So, if I could ask you all to be upstanding. The bride and groom, everyone. Thank you.
Oh my goodness me, what am I going to say? I don't know. Frankly, I think the speech said it all, and I don't really have much more to add to it, other than it's been a fabulous day. Thank you so much. I've had a great time. Even the speech was a huge amount of fun. So, love you guys always.